Hello everybody, my name is Brianna Bilo, and this is your winter 2023-2024 seasonal climate summary. Now, as I've been doing the last couple of years, we are into a new year with the seasonal summary, so we've got a new color scheme. I decided green would be fun this year. So, getting right into it, we're going to recap our stories of the month for the winter. So, Meteorological Winter extends from December 1st through typically February 28th, but this was a leap year, so February 29th. And so we will recap the stories of the month for December, January, and February, and then we'll kind of go over some numbers and the outlooks for the spring season. So the December story of the month, we had a slow start to the snow season. As you can see based on this graph, while we did have some early gains in October and November that brought us to right around normal, things kind of trailed off as we moved from November into December, and we kind of maintained this slightly below normal category here. So you're looking at, so if normal is 50%, we're looking at like, if normal is 100%, we're looking at like that 70 to 80% of normal category here. And we did see some storms that did kind of bump things a little bit closer to normal, but overall definitely not like a real out of this world start to the season. And we did see below normal precipitation, and we saw above normal temperatures. And when we did have that precipitation, in some spots we saw rain rather than snow because of those above normal temperatures. And it just really, it took a while for things to get started. But as I say here, January kind of kicked into a cooler and wetter pattern. And we finally started to see a change in this trend. And as I said, there was plenty of winter to change this trend, and we did see improvement. If you caught my monthly climate video, you'll see that by the end of February, we were actually right around normal, like perfectly right at normal. And as we move into March, we are actually continuing to see this wetter pattern. So we may even see some continued gains as we move towards peak snowpack, because we do still have through April 10th until we hit peak snowpack. So there is, even though we're into meteorological spring, still a significant amount of time to continue to grow that snowpack. And the more we grow that snowpack, the better off we are as we move through the rest of the water year. So moving into the February, or rather the January story of the month, we have the Highway 141 avalanche. So this was Highway 141 near Rico. This is one of the CDOT cams. As you can see, there's a dude with flashlight right there. There's a car back here shining its headlights, and this is an avalanche. As I mentioned, as we got into January, we really switched into a much wetter, more unsettled, cooler pattern, coming off of the heels of a fairly dry and warm December. So what snowpack there was that we gained in December settled and also started to develop something of a crust on it, which when you get snow on top of that creates an unstable layer in the snowpack and leads to an increase in avalanche activity. And that is kind of what we saw as we started getting into this more stormy pattern. We saw avalanche danger start to pick up. There were periods where several of our mountains in western Colorado and eastern Utah were at an elevated avalanche danger category. So like a moderate, I forget, they have a scale of 1 to 5, and we were sitting at like a 3-4 as per the Colorado Avalanche Information Center. You know, the avalanche danger, it's not just like isolated to mountains where skiers go. Like, we do have roads that go through this terrain. We have, you know, mountain passes that have very steep terrain on all sides, and all you really need to get an avalanche is a slope and a snow load. And we definitely saw that, plus, as I mentioned, that weak layer in the snowpack, and we did start to see avalanche activity onto roadways such as Highway 141 here. We did also see some avalanche activity such as like on I-70. They had to do mitigation in various areas up on the mesa on I-70 near Vail. It was definitely a busy season, not just for us here at the Weather Service, but for the people managing the roads, managing the snowpack. It's really a group effort when we get into scenarios like this, because it was just nonstop, and that continued into February. And so the February was hard to find a story of the month for, simply because it was just a continuation of that unsettled and stormy pattern. It really kind of became a status quo sort of thing, where it's like, oh yes, so we have another storm, and then we get 2 days of warmer and drier weather, and then we get another storm. And that's not very exciting. That's not really a story of the month. But what we did have was a late month snow squall. So we also saw with each of these storms would be a fairly punchy little cold front that would come through, and it would drop our temperatures below normal. And then we'd spend the next couple days seeing temperatures jump 5 to 10 degrees each day, until right before the next storm, we'd be sitting at, 10 degrees above normal, and then the cold front would come through and we'd start it all over again. But what was kind of unique about this late month one, which occurred sort of the evening of the 27th into the 28th, was that this cold front was strong enough and held together enough to spawn snow squalls all the way from our northern border with Wyoming to the southern border in the Four Corners area. So we've got some images here. We've got Highway 191 here. It doesn't look super terrible. It looked worse a few minutes before this image was taken. We have Highway 50 between Montrose and Gunnison. You can see that, yes, the camera is kind of obscured, but what you can see through there, if you look really closely, is not good visibility. That was a particularly bad corridor that whole morning. And even as far south, we have Cortez Montezuma County Airport and Durango La Plata County Airport. These are FAA cams. You can see these snow squalls, snow band, precipitation moving in, bringing reduced visibility. And what was kind of unique about this is just the fact that it made it all the way to like Cortez and Durango with this much intensity. Typically what we see with these like cold front bands is that they'll like hang up along the Tavaputs, along the Book Cliffs, maybe bring some nasty weather in the morning to the I-70 corridor, and then start to kind of wash out as it continues to move south, or it'll make it to the Tavaputs and the Book Cliffs and just straight up start to wash out there. It's not super often that cold fronts with these like frontal snow bands and snow squalls make it all the way through the area with like a consistent intensity. So this one was really kind of a unique event. We issued several snow squall warnings, several SBSs. We were on social media that whole morning, putting out these images, kind of, making sure people were aware, because it was definitely not a good morning to be traveling, although I understand people have to travel. At least you could be aware, be prepared. The good thing about snow squalls is they move pretty quickly. So like if you wait, half an hour to an hour, you should be okay. Moving into high temperatures. The majority of these occurred understandably with that really warm period at the end of February, although a few of these have kind of some different stuff. Craig and Meeker in particular kind of are exceptions, just because it took them so long to get their snowpack. They got it late in the season, and once they had it, that kept those high temperatures down. So our warmest high was 66 degrees, and that occurred on the 25th in Grand Junction. All of these, like down to Craig, Meeker, Aspen, were all on that 25th, 26th pre-system like warm event. We were in very strong, very warm southwest flow, and the sun is much stronger. We are just moving into a warmer time of the year, so that makes sense. And then again, Aspen included that a warm day on the 31st, but again, they kind of followed that trend of the February being when the warmest temperatures occurred. And then Craig and Meeker are special because, like I said, they took a little while to get their snowpack. So Craig hit their warmest temperature in December, and they never reached 51 again all the way through the rest of the meteorological winter season. And then Meeker hit it on the 31st with this January 31st warming event, and then again never managed to hit it again for the rest of the month of February. So typically you see vernal also in this category with Craig and Meeker, but vernal really did not do well in the precipitation category over the course of this season. Right up until February, they had less than 1/10 of an inch per month. So really, the vernal did not get to develop that snowpack that you need to set up these inversions that keep temperatures colder. So they're kind of an odd one out in this case too, because typically they'd be down here with Craig and Meeker. And then looking at our coldest temperatures, most of these kind of clustered around a very cold system that we had come through. It was an Arctic air mass. Some of you may remember it, that we had in mid-January. So our coldest low was Craig at -23, and that also kind of has to do with the fact that they had that snowpack built up by then. So they had that cold air inversion setting up. It kept much colder air trapped to the surface. When you get favorable conditions for cooling, such as with this system, you can get really low temperatures. If you've been following me for a while, you'll remember last year we had an event sort of like this, and Craig got all the way down to -40. So Craig, Meeker definitely saw that sort of thing. Durango and Cortez have a tendency to get pretty cold during these sorts of post-frontal, very cold air advection-y situations. They may have also had some snowpack at this point still. We did see several Southern Valley storms early in the season put down quite a bit of snowpack. And then Aspen, Vernal, Rifle, just cold. And then Grand Junction, that was actually as our coldest temperature of the season at 4 degrees. And Canyonlands only getting down to 10. And Canyonlands and Aspen being special in that they tied their lowest temperature, Canyonlands in the end of December and Aspen at the end of February. So definitely not a consistently cold season, but a season punctuated by very cold temperatures. Precipitation, we definitely saw more below normal precipitation than we did above normal. Meeker and Craig being the only places coming out above normal. Meeker, big time, 1.6 inches above normal at 4.31 as a season total. Craig at almost half an inch above normal with 3.14. Pi, Durango almost broke even, and then kind of continuing down. Port Vernal, as I said, they really did not do very well this season. They came in at almost 1.25 inches below normal, topping out with just under half an inch as a total. And most of that came in February. I think prior to that, they had a trace in January and 0.02 of an inch in December. So Vernal did not do super hot, but hopefully we can change that going forward so that we don't have to carry this deficit through the year. The rest of the area, well, Aspen being an exception here, a little over 3/4 of an inch below normal. The rest of the area, a half inch or better, which as a season in total, that's not bad. I've seen definitely worse. I don't know. But it's still, especially after last year, still hurts a little bit to see the winter season coming in with below normal precipitation. Looking at the seasonal drought outlook, we are looking at the areas where we do have drought, so that is a D1 or worse, looking at drought persisting, so that's this area here, and then along our southern border. Much of the area is in fact in abnormally dry conditions, but for the sake of the tendency, that is not considered a drought category. So we could see improvement there. We could see continued degradation, but it has on the whole been an improving trend as we've gotten into the stormy and wet pattern starting in January. And actually the eastern Uintas and our northern and central mountains are actually completely drought free. So hopefully, fingers crossed, we can continue this pattern as we move into the spring, because as I mentioned prior, we have all the way until early to mid-April before we hit peak snowpack, and that's a lot of time to do some pretty good damage on this drought and improving it. Looking at the spring 2024 outlook, we are looking at equal chances of everything. Equal chances of above or below normal temperatures. That's over here, sorry, with maybe a slight tendency towards above normal temperatures across far western northeast Utah. And then equal chances of above or below normal precipitation across the whole area. So anybody's game. We'll just have to wait and see. At least if you've caught my monthly video, you saw that for the outlook for March is definitely strongly favoring above normal precipitation, with equal chances of above or below normal temperatures. So hopefully we can continue this wet season at least through April before we start getting into a sort of shifted pattern where maybe we see more drier conditions as we move into proper spring. And that's it for the seasonal summary. I will see you again with this one in a couple of months, and I'll see you again with the monthly summary in a couple of weeks. Have a good one.